If your online business isn't growing, it's probably dying. There is no idle mode for your biz. Do you agree? We've been helping online business building warriors like you since 2002, and we've noticed some patterns. Do you know what it's like to earn that first 4 figures, 5 figures, or even 6 figures or more in a single month online? Let's talk about it. Here's your host, the silent one himself, Mr. Jim Cockrum.
Yes, that's right. It is time for another episode of Silent Sales Machine Radio. Hi, I am your host, Jim Cockrum, and I can't wait to do this one today. I've thought about it long and hard. If this is a topic that would be of interest to you, and I don't see how it could possibly not be. If you're a motivated entrepreneur, it tells me that growth is something that's on your mind. See, it's just a fact of life. For those of us who understand how the world really works, it's a fact that there's no such thing as a relationship or a health condition or a business that is just steady. It was this way a month ago. It's this way now. It'll be this way 6 months from now. Steady as she goes. Nothing new to report. It's been going great for years, and it's going to go great for years. No need to change anything. Now, come on. We all know that's not true, right? Any business, just like any relationship or your health itself, is either intentionally, by the decisions you're making and the actions you're taking, it's either improving, or if you think it's nice and steady and comfortable, what's really going on is you don't recognize that it's deteriorating in ways that you just don't recognize yet. You're just not aware of the deterioration that's occurring, of the risks that's building. If you've been making the same profitable widgets day after day, month after month, week after week, year after year, then it's just the same stuff over and over. What's really happening is you are growing more and more susceptible to sudden disaster. Same thing with a relationship, right? If there's no spontaneity, there's no interaction, there's no new level of communication, no new stories to tell or exciting adventures to share, it's actually deteriorating, right? You have to be very intentional about relationships. And this isn't a show about relationships or health, but the rules are the same in all of these areas. You've got to be intentionally focused on growth. And so today we're going to talk about the different stages of growth. And now I have hurt some people's feelings in the past. I've had some people leave our group, get fairly angry at me, and stomp away when I say what I'm about to say to you right now. And that is, until you treat your business like it's a business, you don't really have a business. You have a somewhat profitable hobby. And that's fine. I have no problem with you having a profitable hobby. I'm not trying to insult you by saying you have a profitable hobby. But if you've been hitting the yard sales on Saturdays for the last 8 years, spending 3 or 4 hours buying some stuff and then selling it for a profit on eBay or Amazon, you don't have a business. You have a profitable hobby. That's awesome. That's a lot more than a lot of other people have. And maybe you're happy right there. And I plan to have plenty of great content for you if you have a profitable hobby. But there are some stages to growth. And just like we talk about in the title and the show notes for this episode, by the way, you can always go to silentjim.com and check out the show notes for any episode and get all the links that we're going to talk about today and all the resources. But just like I talk about in the show notes and the resources, the title and the topic of today is the different stages of growth. Your first 4-figure month, your first 5-figure month, your first 6-figure month when you pass the $100,000 mark. And what about that first 7-figure month? Yeah, I've got clients who've hit that too. What's it look like? What are those different stages of growth? And like I said, there are some patterns. There's some predictability here to what it looks like as you go through the stages. It has nothing to do with good fortune or being in the right place at the right time or knowing the right people. You just happened to stumble into that one, didn't you? No, business isn't like that. Yes, there is an element of random built into everything, of course. But I find that the people who are really working the hardest and positioning themselves in good ways for success are the ones that keep having the dice fall in their favor. It has nothing to do with good fortune that just happens to smile upon you one day. It just doesn't work that way. People who think that way never actually wind up succeeding. And hopefully that's not you. I know it's not you. You're an entrepreneur. You're driven. You're focused. You want to grow this thing. Okay, so the first obvious question is, okay, Jim, I'm at level X. How do I get to the next level with my business? What are those predictable stages and steps that you've observed? Well, let's talk through them one stage at a time. Your first 4-figure month. putting $1,000 in the bank with an online business, what kind of character traits have I observed among those people who hit that? Now, some people hit that within a few days. Some people, it takes them several months. Maybe they've got a full-time job and several kids and a sick spouse, and they're just doing this a few hours a week. Hey, guess what? Our community loves you, entrepreneur. I'm not talking about how many hours you work. I'm talking about the work you put into those hours that you have. You're making sacrifices. You're keeping your priorities straight. You know that family comes first. But with those hours that you've been blessed with, you are building something. You're building something significant. And you understand success doesn't come overnight. It just doesn't happen that way. Proverbs 13:11 says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. So I applaud you. You're out there just plugging away, doing a few hours a week, doing what you can with what you've got, succeeding tiny steps at a time. Hey, I've read The Tortoise and the Hare, that famous kids book. I've read it several times. The tortoise wins every time. You can cheat right to the end. Sorry if I ruined the ending for you. I won't talk about how the Titanic ends if you haven't seen that movie yet or read the book. The tortoise wins every time. Okay? So take it slow. That's fine. I'm not beating you up today, but I am saying that if you continue on the right path, your business should and will be growing if you're doing it the right way. There's no such thing as a steady business model. Jim, all I need is an extra $500 a month indefinitely and I'll be perfectly happy. Well, I can show you some ways to get there, but I can tell you, you're not actually going to be building something significant and truly useful for your life, because what you have is a very risky model where you've turned a hobby into some profits, and it's a profitable hobby, but it could just fall apart at any moment because you're not looking to grow. If you're not looking to grow, it means it could all vanish at any moment. Ask those people who have focused only on retail arbitrage and online arbitrage to supply their inventory for their Amazon business. Now, the odds of losing it all overnight are very slim, but we do have people in our community, once a week or so, someone will post and go, oh man, I just lost my Amazon account. I've been suspended. 90 to 95% of the time, a few weeks, some cases a couple months later, they come back and say, oh good, Amazon gave me my account back. But sometimes it vanishes forever. There was some violation, something happened, they didn't handle their appeal right or their suspension correctly, and it's gone. And according to Amazon, you're not allowed to get back in. It was even worse a decade ago when eBay would do that. They would come in and suspend the sellers for one reason or another. Poof, gone. Back then with eBay, it happened with very little interaction. There wasn't even an email. You just tried to log in and you couldn't anymore. And there was no response from eBay as to why, what happened, what you did wrong. In many cases, just bam, gone. That's why we all applauded when Amazon came along. Finally, another option. But the reason I bring up Amazon and eBay and retail arbitrage specifically, and online arbitrage, which by the way is just simply, buying stuff inexpensively retail, either online or off a store shelf, and then flipping it for a profit. It's a beautiful business model. We have many, many people in our community building businesses that are very valuable, very profitable, and they're doing just that. And I applaud it and we support that. It's a great business model. It works everywhere in the world. We love it. But if you're not willing to grow beyond that, you actually do have an element of risk built into your business model that you simply can't get rid of until you're willing to grow. And one of the ways to grow out of that, typically it's these people who have a 4-figure a month. They're putting a few $1,000s a month. Now, some of them go over 10,000, some of them go well over that, and they build real systems around this. But there's inherent risk there. So until you're willing to grow your business beyond that into the next stages of development and diversify your income, you'll always have that element of risk wondering in the back of your mind, could Amazon take this all away from me at some point? I want you to grow past that. See, one of the benefits of growing your business is you eliminate certain risks because they're no longer a concern, because you've got other streams of income. You have other things going on that protect you. But don't start thinking this is a condition unique to those who sell using online and retail arbitrage on Amazon. No, this is a universal truth of business, guys. If something is fairly straightforward and fairly easy to do and decently profitable, well, there's going to be a lot of people attracted to that business model. Now, I've been following the arbitrage model probably longer than anyone in the business, 15 plus years. I mean, eBay was built on that model, guys. We've been doing this a long time. And while a lot of other people are out there shouting about the demise and the end of online arbitrage and retail arbitrage. It's not going anywhere. I assure you, it's not going anywhere. As long as we have free markets, there will be a business to be had in online and retail arbitrage. And rather than go into my logic, I wrote an article. I went way in depth. Put on your thinking cap and read through that article. If you understand supply and demand, if you remember that from your economics class at some point, supply and demand drive the price, right? So it's the buying public who will determine if online arbitrage and retail arbitrage ever goes away. Not Amazon, not eBay, not you, not me, not any other entity, not Nike or some of these other big brands. They don't get to decide if it goes away. The only people that get to decide if arbitrage ever goes away are the buying public. If the buying public ever starts saying, no, I don't want to save any money, I insist on only buying name brand products at full retail, well, okay, then arbitrage might die. But that's not going to happen. It's never going to happen. Arbitrage is here indefinitely as long as we have free markets. But you are susceptible to a lot of changes. You are susceptible to shifts and to competition that can pop up out of nowhere. How could you possibly be surprised when someone competes with you when your business model is arbitrage? And that's it. That's all you do. You're going to have competition. You're going to be chasing profitable products constantly without that stability and growth that comes from growing beyond that. So that's what it feels like to be in that 4-figure chase. That $1,000 to $9,000 a month business, that may sound like a dream come true to some of you. That's awesome. Make it a goal to get there. That's what you're going for. That's awesome. We will support you every step of the way. You can get there. It is a fairly easy business model, but those 4 figures, the word that comes to mind for me is hustle. And that's not a word that I'm a huge fan of necessarily, but that's what those early stages feel like. Now, I got to tell you, I kind of feel sorry for somebody who's still in hustle mode 4 years after their business is launched. It tells me they're not putting the right systems in place. If you're out there hustling, hitting the streets, burning the midnight oil, running yourself into the ground, I'm a firm believer that you should do that in the early days of your business. You're going to have to work your tail off. Even if you only got a few hours a week to do this, it's going to feel like work. You're going to be busting your hump to get this stuff done, working more than you feel like you should have to get into those 4-figure numbers. But the next stages feel a lot more like building systems and thinking correctly and developing yourself into a better leader, becoming more strategic, putting the right people into the right places to allow things to operate without you being on top of them constantly. That's how you get out of hustle mode, is you start with correct partnerships. It doesn't feel like hustle to get on the phone with your team and talk strategy for a few hours. I mean, some people might call that hustle. I call that building relationships and building good systems. It's a pure pleasure. It sure beats trying to put tape on 50 boxes every 10 minutes so I can stay ahead of my production schedule when I'm doing it all myself. I'd much rather be on the phone, leisurely having a conversation, getting to know my team, talking strategy, coming up with new ideas. I mean, maybe that sounds like hustle to you, but it doesn't feel like hustle to me when I'm doing it. It feels like strategy and leadership and building a team. So that 5-figure, that 10,000 to 90,000 kind of monthly number, we have many people in our community doing those kinds of numbers.